Welcome to T Simple Podcast. We focus on providing simple solutions in the classroom. I have my sister Blue, which stands for bold, loving, unapologetic, and evolving. These words describe Fenyx Blue. Miss Blue is an author of the books Who Failed Johnny, Battle of the Bullies, Worth of the Wait, A Rare Gem, the Blue Ink Movement. She has so much experience in education. She was a district former Those Who Excel Teacher of the Year. She is a soldier in the Blue Phoenix movement, encouraging every Phoenix in the world to rise up. Super positive, a leader. Ms. Blue, how you doing today?
I am doing wonderfully. Thank you for having me. It is an honor to be here and a pleasure.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. And you're from Chicago, correct?
Yes, Chi-Town all day.
Wow. And are you there right now?
I am indeed in Chicago.
Okay.
Given our circumstances, I am here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Me and my wife, we went there for my birthday in November, and it was amazing. It was really great. But it was right around the time, I guess, when they had those riots and stuff. And when we were downtown, it was boarded up everywhere, and it was just because I would say I was hesitant to go because I'm scared to go to Chicago, but I was hesitant to go because just the time, I just felt like just me traveling anywhere, I felt like I just needed to be home. And my wife was like, you need to chill out. You need to enjoy yourself. And I had a blast. We had an amazing time. It was dope. We had amazing food. And I'm going back to Chicago soon so I can go to the what's the candy house? The candy restaurant?
Sugar Factory?
Yeah, the Sugar Factory. Yeah. Yeah.
So popular right now.
Yeah, so we got to go there. So I got to get my bread up first because the price is crazy. So yeah, but anyways. So what's up? How you doing? How was your day today? How has it been, during COVID? Your positivity is on 100, so I got to get the secret sauce. What's up?
It was a wonderful day today. I get to go into many, many classes. So I get to, on a Friday before, as we're filming this, as we're doing this, it's a Friday before a holiday. And so you know how a 4-day weekend can go. The kids were very, very excited, yeah, and they were at an all-time high with their energy. So it was a very great day.
Absolutely. And shout out to, all the kids. It was finals week this week. And they worked really hard, and so now they get to chill for the 3-day weekend. We get to honor Dr. Martin Luther King.
Yes.
Yeah, so let me show you real quick. So at T Simple, we have 3 affirmations. The first one is the snap in. The second one is the tiger, the golf clap. And then the third one is when, it's just off the chain. You just raise the roof because you just had to stop doing what you're doing because you said something that was just amazing, okay? So excuse me if you see me doing that, but that's just how we show love.
All right, I'm aiming for that one. I want the raise the roof one.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, you definitely got it. And your energy is just something that is so rare. My mother is, I would say, the pure example of a patriot. My mother was the first to go to college. She grew up in the Lafitte projects in New Orleans, Louisiana. She dropped out of college when she first got there, got a job, raised the money. Then she ended up graduating, became a master teacher, plus 30 New Orleans Public School Boards. She moved me from Katrina, started a whole new life in Virginia, helped me. She retired with a pension, helped me get through college.
Amazing.
Seeing your story and what you do, I don't know if you have kids or anything,
I do indeed.
Just talk about the importance of leadership, especially during this time. I feel like leadership was just something that was a significant word. And I brought up my mom and I brought up, being a patriot because the leaders are the real patriots. And people saying they're patriots now, but they ain't real patriots. But there are really people that are doing it. So I just want to talk about just being a leader. What is that? Why? How important it is today? How important is that today?
It is as important today as it was in the past, in the sense that, especially when it comes to our youth, and you're a great example by that, what you just shared. our kids they don't often listen to what we say, but they do imitate us. You know, they do imitate the actions that we do. And by leading and setting that good example, we're showing them the paths in which they should go. Your mom was a first, you know, to graduate. That led a path for you through that leadership. She showed you how to come out of an environment that was not the best circumstance, but she made the best out of it and made something better for you. So you knew to aspire to that, right? If we see it, we can be it. And so leadership in the schools and beyond the schools and all the different communities that impact our youth, and that could be the church, that could be wherever it is, we need those leaders that lead by example, their actions, not just their words.
Absolutely, absolutely. And when I think of the word teacher, you know, it's assuming, not saying that you are, but when I say the word teacher, assuming that you're a leader.
Yes, that's
you know
the assumption.
It gives you the opportunity. And I say that to say because there's data that shows that if you are ineffective, you actually do worse to kids than if you had a sub in the classroom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you make them go the other direction. They're reverting back. They're going the wrong direction.
And I'm keep talking about the theme of leadership because when we talk about like how this country handled the coronavirus, we had states that had great leadership and the virus was handled. We had states that didn't have great leadership and the virus was mishandled and people's lives were lost. So again, like your job. So just talk about, I guess, like what are other ways you teach your secret sauce, right? So you're a teacher, right? But you also dabble in different ways, right? So poetry, and just how important is expression to you?
Self-expression is very, very important. And what I learned with my my male students mostly is that if I were to ask them to express themselves in a rap, I had a lot more volunteers than if I were to say, hey, let's give a monologue. Using the right vocabulary with it, encourage them to express themselves. They were a little more familiar. If I said, would you write a poem? Well, could you write a poem with music? You know, also a rap, right? So self-expression is extremely important. And it was one way for me to get into the mind of my students by allowing them a platform in the classroom to express themselves, to share their stories with other people in the classroom. That allowed me to form relationships and connect with them and to allow them to connect with each other. So I had some students, not only self-expression for them, and that's where I go with leading by example. It was nothing for me to literally stand on top of desks when we were in physical settings, to stand on top of a desk with a microphone and make a fool of myself and speak, right, to encourage them to do the same. You know what I mean? I didn't have to have anything perfect. I could freestyle, which encouraged them to do it as well. So that allowed me to see what's going on in their head, you know, what's going on in their mind. How do they feel about today's climate and what's going on in our world? We don't want to assume. We have leaders right there in the classroom. What are they thinking? And so by allowing them to express themselves, I can also, you know, kind of stop it ahead of time if they have some things going on in their mind that aren't true. I can kind of break that before it becomes a problem. So self-expression is truly, truly important with our youth.
So you're getting them to express themselves so you can assess your kids.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
We got summative assessments, right? We got the tests and stuff. But then we got formative assessments, which is like qualitative data. It's not about numbers. It's like the stuff you see. And sometimes you have to provide that context to get that expression out, right?
You do. You do.
So we're going to get a teacher tip of the week, and I want to stay on expression, okay? So I want to talk about how can we build relationships while using expression. So I'll talk about my first year teaching, right? So I was teaching in Mexican town, Detroit. So Detroit has a huge Mexican population, Latinx population. The school that I was teaching at, you know, is predominantly, you know, Latinx. Variety of different cultures. I'm a student teacher in geometry. I'm teaching, I think, similar triangles. Boring, dead boring, right?
Yes.
The class is literally like, it's like the way it's set up, the kids are on one side and the other kids on the other side, and there's like a clear lane in the middle so I can like teach and walk in the middle, and the board is on the side. So I'm like teaching, and 4 kids falling asleep, and then I'm like, dang, man, I gotta do something. And I just start doing this. Boom, 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 boom. And then slowly they just start like waking up. They're like, what is going on? And then I'm like, okay, I got their attention now. Now I got to redirect it to the mat. I'm like, boom.
Right.
Boom,
Let's get to these triangles.
boom, boom, we got the triangle. And then I just started like freestyling, and then I rapped something, rhymed it with 9, and before you know it, everybody's like, hey, you know.
Yes.
You know, and that's I called the audible, right? I called the, all right, this ain't working, I gotta put something out. And I learned that the power of just like music, it's engagement, you know what I'm saying? So
Right.
What tip would you give the teachers, you know, related to expression that build relationships?
Well, the first thing is what I heard in your example would be the tip that I have is that you have to be willing to fail forward. Okay. So by having those opportunities in your actual class where, you know, maybe you're not perfect at this, but you're willing to, you decided, hey, I'm going to go ahead and improvise right on the spot. And sometimes we have a perfect lesson planned, or we think this is how we've done it in the past and it worked. Well, you had to adapt right there. Isn't that part of the standards for an educator, is that you need to have that flexibility right on the spot. And so right then you said, hey, even if this flops, I'm going to pull out these triangles with this beat. Let's see how it goes, right? And that's what a teacher has to be willing to do, to fail forward, make some mistakes. Kids understand, they get that you're human. They get it. And they will ride with you, especially if you build those relationships. So expressing yourself and being willing to fail, I think those are going to get you very far as an educator. It certainly did for me.
It did, because those who express Teacher of the Year, that's you, right? That's
Yeah.
So talk about that. How did we get to that point, right? You failing, but then you get Teacher of the Year. How does that work?
Well, you know what? You know how sometimes there are students that get these labels, okay? There are all the different labels and everything. Those were the students who ended up in my room. And I'm one of those teachers that loved them, okay? I love them. I, worked with them, and it was a pleasure to work with them. And when I say a pleasure, that doesn't mean it was perfect all the time. That means that I learned a lot from my students and that we learned together in this process. So I think the Teacher of the Year, I know what it came from because people wrote letters after letters. It was about just connecting to the kids, giving them, meeting them where they were. So that means if you like Naruto, then I need to know where Naruto is. If you like whatever your cartoon is, whatever the superhero is, whatever the music is, that's going to be in our classroom because I need to make sure that you're engaged. Okay, I'm bringing you and I'm honoring you as a student. And so I tried to find as many opportunities to do that as possible. And that was from what we read, giving them choice, like I said on the microphone, in the classroom, Shakespeare, but it's set in Chicago and they're doing what they need to do to bring it to life. So it was more so about just honoring the students and connecting to them. And I think that a lot of people saw that, and people see your heart. They know that you're willing to do whatever it takes to, build their reading levels, but mostly build them as human beings. That's what we need to remember, is that we are teaching our kids for the future, not just a subject. You're teaching a human being, a child, and you're helping to prepare them for the future. And so whatever it takes, they always ask you when you get the Teacher of Year because they want to kind of repeat it. They want someone else to do it. And all I could say is do whatever it takes to reach your kids. How do you repeat that?
That's it. It's that simple, but it's so hard to do.
Yeah. Yes.
Man, I'm so blessed. We got my sister Fenyx Blue in the T Simple podcast. How you feeling?
I'm clapping it up. I'm raising it up. I'm snapping it up.
So let's talk about Chicago. So Chicago is a very special city because it was just like Detroit and Indiana. It was like where the first black middle class started, right? You know, we have the Great Migration, and we have all these black people after slavery, after all that oppression, trying to make some of themselves, and they did, you know.
Yes, they did.
And they did like proudly, you know. And so just talk about like the come up in Chicago and what do you love about your city and how does it help you become a better teacher every day?
I like the activism in Chicago.
Mm, yeah.
You have a lot of youth activism, and our youth are powerful. I mean, I've been right there by their side. When I started to do initiatives that were for bullying, it was out of violence as well. And so, you know, I had the opportunity to meet Father Flager, to speak at events, to do, you know, poems and different presentations. But it was out of the youth, okay? They were bold enough and proud enough to try to make a difference in their own city. And that's what I like. I mean, if it's one thing to say we need to change an environment, but it's another thing to be willing to go out and to express that to the whole world. And that's what I love about it. Our city is beautiful, but when there are, you know, issues that come up or things like that, we're willing to march, to speak out, to go and try to raise money, to make a difference. And the youth are right there at the heart of that. And so that's what I love about, you know, Chicagoans, and especially our youth. And then just the city is just beautiful. I mean, look at that skyline. I mean, that's amazing, right?
Very beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
Very beautiful. Very beautiful. And so much culture, so much diversity, and so much history. And you said activism. I think of Fred Hampton.
Yes.
You know, 20, 19 years old.
Mm-hmm. Putting his life on the line. That's right, to make a difference.
Bringing gang members together, and unifying them. Like when I would read about him, I would just see like people that I always wanted to be growing up. You know, the people who were the cool swagger people, but they were righteous people.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like he was educated. Like I remember he had an issue with an ice cream truck and he got charged and he was defending himself like literally, you know, as his own lawyer, and his eloquence, his bravado, his pedagogy, the way he talked was super simplistic. That's really where I get the simplicity from. People like him that would just say something, because Malcolm X was really powerful because his metaphors and his what's the word? He was very funny. Oh my God, satire or whatever. The way that he would say a metaphor, it would be heart-wrenching but very funny, you know. And Fred Hampton had those same skills, and absolutely, Chicago, absolutely.
Yes, Chi-Town.
Absolutely. So let's talk about your organization. So how important is to create organizations that not only give kids the knowledge, but they're organizations that help kids matriculate and stay in, you know, the places they need to be successful. And what are those organizations? What are the names and the motivations behind them?
Okay, so I have created a lot of organizations over the years, and they've come out of, you know, the needs of the students, and because I'm one of those teachers that ask for feedback from the students, so it's like, what do you need, and how can I serve you, and how can I improve, and what are some things that you need. And so one of the organizations, Dad's Rock, we didn't have as many males in, you know, or even some of my students were without male figures in the home. And especially those successful males that have already been successful that could tell them and share their wisdom with the students. And so I wanted to create that organization so they could have a guide. How did this man become an engineer? Okay. How did he become a doctor? How did this person have their own trucking company? What does that mean to even have a business? These are not the type of male people that were in their environment. And so I wanted to make sure that they had that exposure, because I'm one of those people that was a first generation and I didn't have that person to mentor me and tell me what I need to get to that next level in life. So that was one of the organizations that had to be created. Another was Daughters Inspiring Values and Sisterhood. Sometimes I don't even like to call it divas because people feel like they get a bad idea about it. But my girls, my girls said that they needed that. They needed, you know, those positive female role models that would share them the secrets. Like, how do you get scholarships? You know, that how do I position myself for the scholarship? You know, what kind of relationships do I need? Who needs to know me? You know, sometimes it's not who you know, who knows you, right? And so I wanted to make sure that they had those type of things in place as they go to the next level in life. So it's just whatever was the need of the student, and that's Team Bully Free Forever. You know, I had a student who was considering suicide, and we're like, no, that's not going to happen, right? In order to go to the next level in life, you have to be alive, right? So we need to do whatever it takes to get you mentally strong, emotionally strong, and whatever it's going to take to have you build some friendships. So each of these organizations were made because that's what the students needed in order to get to the next level in life.
So equity, so you're giving them what they need so they can, you know, really benefit, you know. And I love that you have it for the boys and the girls. So have you ever heard of like a ceasefire?
Ceasefire?
Yeah, like ceasefires.
Are you talking in military terms, or I'm
Yeah.
going to my military background. I'm sorry.
Oh, my bad. I'm sorry.
ROTC, that's coming in my head right now. So what are we talking about?
So I'm trying to think of the gentleman's name, but it's an organization in Chicago, but it's a ceasefire program that's helped to get shooters just pretty much keep them from doing what they're doing. And provide. I'm sorry, go ahead.
By taking the guns away?
Exactly, right.
Okay.
Exactly. But yeah, taking the guns away and really getting there with the kids. And he took a survey, and one thing that he found from the survey of all the, like, it was predominantly Black men. He found that a lot of them didn't have jobs, right? A lot of them were unemployed. And he said, you know, that's not an excuse to kill somebody, right? He said, I don't believe just because you don't have a job, that should give you a right. But that just talks about like disparity. And that was there was another statistic that he said that a lot of the people don't want to hire them. He said that he found that it's really hard to get the boys jobs because a lot of people don't want to hire them. He talked about consistency. He said that sometimes you say, okay, I got a job fair, and just come in there with a suit, just bring your resumes. He said he'll come, and then he said no one came, you know? And so he just talked about the struggle of trying to help people, but he also talked about the importance of having that system that's present. Because if you have that system that's present, you can really change lives. But the program is really great. I'm sorry I don't know the guy's name, but it's like a ceasefire program in Chicago.
Absolutely. And it sounds like a program that's very needed because, like you said, it is those systems that we can make some assumptions, like why do these people have guns? But it is because what has failed prior to getting that gun. You know, why am I in the position to need this gun right now? And so, yeah, that's great. He's getting to the root of it. The same thing we do in schools, right? We sometimes want to expel and give detentions and give punishments. But what was the root of that person making that choice? And how can we put a system in place that they have alternatives so they don't get to that point? Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's why you're a leader. That's why you are a leader, because you have to put it in motion. Because you talk about the realness of having organizations and the plight that comes with that, like the responsibility and just maybe the burden sometimes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, in the role as a leader, I think, you know, I hate to sound cliche when they say you have to have tough skin, but what I realize as a leader is that it's not about me. And I know that sometimes doing what's right doesn't rub everyone the right way. They'll see within the school system. I remember one teacher getting me into a copy room, and he said, hey, you know, you're doing a lot, but, you know, I feel like you're doing too much. Okay. Like you're doing too much. And I was like, wow. what do you mean by that? In his eye, it's me making him look bad by serving students. And for me, it's like, well, what else could you do? What could you bring to the table? I think as an educator, you have to be willing. When you're a leader, you have to be willing to know that it's not about you. And even if you have to take some stripes or, some lashes because you're going to serve your students or you're going to do what's best, that's part of it. So yeah, it wasn't a great feeling having to stand up and say, hey, this is what we need to do in order to move our students forward and to actually address some of the things that we try not to talk about. Sometimes we try not to talk about equity. Sometimes we try not to have those tough conversations, but those tough conversations have to be had, or otherwise we'll be in the same place 400 years from now in education that we are right now today. We have to advance, so someone has to lead that conversation, just like someone led it prior to us to getting to where we are right now. And so if that means that someone's saying, hey, you're doing too much, I guess I'll just be team too much,
But you asked the best question. You say, what do you mean by that?
Exactly.
Like you didn't react. You say, what do you mean by that? How do you get that, just that cool, calm, and collectness?
I think I had a great mom, just like you talked about your mom earlier. I had a great mom and a great father who taught me that, it's more important to listen, right? So you can get to it and then to react later. Sometimes I think people do, you just respond right away because it wasn't that it didn't hurt, it stung. And it was a little bit, surprising to hear that when you're just trying to make your copies. Yeah. But it was that you just learn that I'm a servant, I'm a very spiritual person. I'm there to serve.
It's bigger.
So it's bigger than that.
Absolutely. I love it. Man, Fenyx Blue. So I want to talk about your books, but I want to ask you about like your childhood and like, how did you get into education? Like, what was that catalyst? And then I have talk about like, growing up in Chicago and how did you get to where you are now, like becoming a teacher and stuff, or educator.
Absolutely. So my journey began at age 6 with writing. Okay. So at age 6, I was writing. I remember writing a little thank you note to my mom and it rhymed and she applauded me. And there's something about applause. Like, so when you have the applause and you're doing that, it just was so good. It was such good feedback that I was like, ooh, I'm good at this. But I never thought that I would want to later use that in some way, so I just went through school. But it was an educator, one of those educators who's willing to do anything. I'm talking about a man that's like, hey, if I'm going to get you to do homework, I'm willing to do some push-ups and sit-ups.
Yeah, I'm going to cut you off. You got to say his name. You got to shout him out.
Absolutely. His name was Mr. Torrance. Hey. Mr. Torrance. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Torrance. Mr. Torrance would read my essays and my papers and he would say, if you're not a teacher, I don't know who should be a teacher. You need to be a teacher. And so I would be like, what? Everyone was telling me to be a doctor or a lawyer, to follow the money, to chase the money, and he was like, no, this is where you need to go. So what happened is when I went to college, I was able to tutor people in the area of writing. And so that's like mini teaching, right? Like little tiny version of teaching. And I got hooked. I mean, when they started to be really successful and they were doing really well, and people who had been through educational systems where they couldn't even write an essay and now they could, and they were doing great in college, I was like, I want to do this for the rest of my life. And that's where it started. And now here I am, an educator all these years later, still hooked with changing students for the better and helping them to reach their highest potential.
What advice would you give to kids who struggle with writing?
What I do tell them, is to start with the things that you can write about. So it's not about structure and it's not about the perfect comma or the perfect, metaphor or simile. What are those things that you're passionate about that you could write and write and write and write about? So some students, they have things that they're very passionate about, but they just feel like it's something about putting it on the paper or on the computer that kind of makes them nervous. But I said, hey, talk to me about that topic, you know, and they're like, oh, okay, well, mine would be LeBron. I'm like, okay, well, let's hear about LeBron. I want to hear about him. And they can just go on, and we start there. Well, what is that thing that you can write about forever? And then once you get that confidence that you can write about that, then it starts to build from that point. So that's what has gotten me the most success. And of course, sharing my own writing with students, because, you know, I don't know if it's a competition factor or if it's just my teacher sharing with me, but that usually gets them into it too.
I love it. I just want to be in your class right now. You do not understand it, man. Because writing is it's an expression too.
Yes, it
Right?
is.
And it's sensitive. Like when someone reads your writing, like you're not only worried about the grammatical stuff and the structure and stuff, you're also worried about, like, you know, what they think about it. And writers are super special to me. I think it shows that if you can show that you can write at an early age, then you can probably predict let's say the IQ of someone. Would you agree with that before I continue?
I do agree. It's a great indicator of what's going to be future. What's the success in, you know, just like reading level, reading
Yeah.
and writing. Mm-hmm.
And you talked about like context, right? So writing in the kids' context that they can relate to. I feel like that applies to reading as well. So we're going to talk about your books, and I want to talk about just, you know, the importance of Black literature. But before I do that, I want to talk about a writer. And he's not a traditional writer, but he is a writer. He's a rapper. And his name is Kendrick Lamar.
Oh,
And
yes.
Kendrick Lamar, right, with his art, won a Pulitzer Prize.
Yes.
Which is a writing award, you know? So that's another example of just how much potential education has, right? Because his albums are being used in curriculum and his work is still fairly young. So
They should be.
yeah, so I guess like talk about that real quick. Just like kind of react to that. Like what is that? Just that phenomenon.
Well, first of all, I'm just great that we are acknowledging how brilliant and ingenious his work is, because there was a time when certain pieces of literature, you know, were not considered art, you know, and where people could not see or gave them the praise that they deserved. So we're seeing that the complexity of someone's story and how the storytelling, the depth of their storytelling should be looked at. We can't just put it in a box based on a genre. We have to look at how does it touch the people, and, you know, how does it move the people? What, you know, that's the Pulitzer is more than just, you know, the words and how deep, but how did that message go out beyond the people? And Kendrick Lamar took us to a next level and brought in all different types of communities to love an art form that maybe they didn't love before, but now they can see the complexity in it and like, wow, this is poetry. This is storytelling at a different level. This person's point of view and how they can flip the rhythm and the cadence, and, you know, it's adding music and history and all these different genres. He's blending them all together. That is what we want to encourage our students to do. Not just meet the mold, but break it. And he broke it and took it to the next level.
Fenyx Blue in the house coming through. I love it. I love it. I'm gonna keep shining you out, sis, because you are just doing the damn thing. I love it. I love it. I love it.
All right.
So let's talk about Black literature, right? So I always bring this up whenever I interview a Black author, because it needs to be known that right when the Emancipation Proclamation happened, right? 1865 or something like that. Right after that, 7 years was the largest acquisition of Black literacy for ex-slaves. So for that 7-year process, so we were enslaved for 400 years. When we were freed, that after that 7 years, we started our own schools. We had teachers. We created the model for public education in the South.
That's
And,
powerful.
and Dr. James Anderson in the book of Black Education in the South from 1865 to 1935. And if you're a Black educator teaching kids, you must read that book. If you haven't read that book, sister, please read it.
I
It's
will
an
add it to
amazing
my
book.
list.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's an amazing book. But it talks about self-determination and how Black folks had self-determination. That is what keeps us alive. That is how we're able to survive all of this. Because even though we were told not to read, our self-determination is what made us sneak and read, right? They would have teachers that would literally have classes, secret classes to teach 1, 2, 3.
I know. We were listening in too, listening, trying to get that education. Absolutely.
You got brothers like Frederick Douglass, who were a huge integral part of probably that Emancipation Proclamation, sneaking to read, like through that. So how important is Black literature and why literacy for you? I mean, you talked about it already, but I guess why did you make the books? Yeah.
Okay, I wrote the books because, as I said, it's out of the need of our students. And so one of the things that I found is that our students needed to see their stories and that their stories were honored and to see themselves on the covers of books. In my classes where I had the most success, it was from those students that loved what they were reading, that chose what they were reading, and felt like, oh, this is a story I could relate to. I wanted to write that for them. I listened to them. I heard them. I know what type of stories they were interested in. And I wanted to have a book that made them want to continue to read and read again and read again. And so literacy is important because we know that it is an indicator for future success, but it also, we're touching future generations by getting one particular student to love reading and maybe even to write a book or whatever in the future, then maybe that's the next generation that's going to be even further advanced.
So what you're doing is the antidote. So talk about your books. Like, could you maybe, like, what are the name of the books, and give us like a little brief synopsis, and maybe could you read possibly from one of them that you would like to share with us, an excerpt or anything?
Okay, so I'll start with Worth the Wait. And that is, if I'm going to put it really simple, that's a story that shows that there are positive dads and daughter relationships. And there are men that are active fathers in their daughters' lives. And it kind of takes you through the love of a dad for his daughter as he's trying to teach her about her value. So that is one. It's called Worth the Wait. The second one, thank you. The second one is Battle of the Bullies. And that was written because it's basically showing students that they need to be upstanders to bullying and not just stand by and see things that are being done, but specifically girl bullies, because I heard so many times that girls can't be bullies, but I see it in the schools. So I wanted to share that story as well. So that is one. And Who Failed Johnny is for our young men that feel like their stories are not being told. Those students they hear things like man up, don't cry, boys don't cry, things like that. And so they feel like they're not being honored in our school system and what things they go through. And so that is Who Failed Johnny. My poetry book is called The Blue Ink Movement. And that's just to encourage people to be bold and loving and unapologetic and always evolving, which is to be blue.
So you said boys don't cry. I love that, because I don't know if you listen to Frank Ocean, but he had like a clothing line or like a CD that said "Boys Don't Cry." And Frank Ocean is very he's a pioneer, because he was the first like hip hop artist to come out as homosexual. And I think that is really significant when you're talking about boys don't cry, because we forget that as Black men, we're not a monolith, right? We're not this stereotype that the media portrays. We are sensitive. We can be quote unquote soft, quote unquote geeks, quote unquote, everything that everybody else is.
Exactly.
And we get molded into this picture, and no matter what your likes or interests are, you look like this image only.
Right.
And when you talked about like being an upstander and being like a like you know just I was one of those boys like you know that was bullied, you know, and always tell a story. You know, I grew up in a different environment. My mother put me in this type of setting because, I, you know, people say she did it for character. She did it because she wanted me to be around my culture. Really, I felt.
Yes.
And she wanted me to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell the story about this fight that I got in, and just how it happened. It was the most traumatic experience ever. This dude, we went to the same grade school together. And again, like they probably never forgot me, but we were cool. We were chill, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then he stopped going to that school. And then about 3 grades later, I get into middle school. We go to Liver Days, and I see him. And I said, "What's up, yo? What's up?" You know, I'm thinking that we still cool, but it was different. He was much bigger. He was grown. He had a different swag. I don't know. And I thought we were cool. So he was like, you know, when kids talk, when they play, like, yeah, man, we gonna fight, right? Yeah, man, we gonna fight. Yeah, we playing.
After
You know,
school.
yeah,
After school.
After, you know, but like we just playing. I'm thinking we playing.
Right.
So he's like, yeah, Calvin, we gonna fight. And because I was such an assimilationist, because I was always trying to figure out how to fit in, and because I was in the line between the black kids and the white kids. So I went to an integrated school, a purposely integrated school in Louisiana. So we had a flux of inner city kids going into this suburban school.
Yes.
And the classes would be segregated, not purposely, but the kids would do that. You know, like the kids would like separate themselves.
Yes.
And I would be in the middle.
Oh, wow.
I remember.
You did not have to play.
The kid telling me, you better be quiet or you gonna go sit over there with them. You know, like kids telling me like I'm not black enough.
Oh yeah.
You know? So going back to the bully situation. So I'm walking, right? I'm walking with my friend Maverick, man. Maverick, another short kid, like he light skinned just like me. I think he's still just like me trying to fit in. But because he could play basketball, he was much more accepted or whatever.
Okay.
We're walking, we go into the store. I'm getting my hot sausage sandwich. I'm walking back with Maverick, and I see the dude. And the dude is like, okay, yeah, we're going to fight now. I'm like.
You were like, you were serious?
You were serious? Right?
I thought we were joking. Yeah.
I thought we were joking. And to make a long story short, he beat me up in front of Maverick. He beat me up in front of a bunch of high schoolers that were going to the high school that I was going in. And I was traumatized. I was really traumatized. I was traumatized because growing up without a dad, I didn't know how to fight, you know? So all I could have was my mouth, my words.
Yeah.
My friend Maverick didn't fight for me. And I just felt like the people that were older than me, they were portraying something that I didn't want to be. And because they didn't fight, you know, they didn't help me. They were kind of like, man, you better fight them back, you know. And they were like, "Oh, you got beat up."
You're on your own.
So how? Just dissect that. I guess like what happened there? Like what was the lesson learned? I guess I don't know.
I heard so many things there that I see often, which tells me that you know things have come far, but there are some things that remain because students are still treated differently, you know, based on how they speak or which you know communities they decide to be a part of. We still have self-segregation in areas that still happens. But what I hear as a consistent is there's 3 things involved. You had that bystander, that was Maverick, right? Okay. You still had the bully that you didn't even know was a bully, which is even more of a challenge. And then you have the target, which was you. And why were you the target? And that was because you were different, but also not willing. You say you're a assimilationist, but you weren't willing to back down on your beliefs or, you know, stuff like that too. So that's good for you then. And look how paying off, your words have paid off now, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what do? We have to empower all 3. you know. And I know sometimes that's controversial for people because people will say something like, bullies, look, hey, they look, let's focus on the target, right? You know, let's focus just on you. But then that person's just gonna move on. Once you're empowered, they're gonna move on to someone else, right? And then that person will be the next victim and the next target. So why not find out, why is this person who used to be your buddy, who just got a little more buff, a little bigger, why is he now, what has he gone through? Why is he hurt? You know, what's his story? Okay, and how can we get to the bottom of that? Okay, and then as far as Maverick, why is it that he is not feeling like I need to stand up? He's okay. Maybe if you guys were balling or gaming or doing something else, he's by your side. But what makes him shut down when it's time to actually stand up and be brave? What is that that's triggering that? You know, is it fear? Is it, you know, he looked around, he's like, ooh, even the two of us can't take him. What was it, you know? So, you know, and that, things like that, that's why I have Team Bully Free Forever, because those conversations are not easy to have, you know, they're not easy to have, but you have to start somewhere, you know, and the conversation is a beginning point, you know, mediation is a beginning point. They solve everything, but it does, you know, give all people, all three, some type of skill set. You know, let me try to build a leader instead of a bully. Let me empower, you know, not that you want to embolden and say, get to fighting, but you want them to stand up for themselves, and at least with your words, and at least go find an adult, or at least go find someone who can do something about this circumstance. So that has not changed, you know, in all these years.
And one thing I would add, I did stand up for myself. I did put my fists up. I just didn't know how to use them. That's all.
That's why you needed Dad's Rock. You needed those guys there in your school to be there to help you out. Because I'm telling you, they're always showing the kids how to do some things.
Right. Would you have called the people that were spectating bullies?
Would I say I would have, that were kind of instigating it on?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would. I would still say they were bullies. And if I didn't go bully, I would say bystanders, of course. But when you're instigating it, you know, it happens later in life too, right? The more you're encouraging something, they want to charge you for it too. Like, yeah. You shouldn't be inspiring people to assault or inspire, you know, that's what it happens later in life. That's what we're calling it, right? So in a school, we shouldn't be encouraging people to fight and harm one another. That same voice that you could use that to go tell the teacher or get the security guard, you know.
How much time you got, Ms. Blue?
I have 10 whole minutes. What time is it? Oh, 15.
All right, cool. All right, so I'm gonna talk about one little thing, and then I want to get into. I think I asked majority.
Yeah, you went through them. You were.
Yeah. All right.
And it felt like a conversation too. It wasn't like next question.
How's it feel? It sounds good? Everything's cool?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right,
wait, cool. I meant.
Excellent. All right, cool. So, do you know who King Vaughn is?
Oh, yeah.
So, I want to talk about him real quick. So, I watched the interview with King Vaughn, and he was talking about. So the interviewer pretty much asked him, like, straight up. He was like, "Yo, why is the shooting in Chicago so excessive?" And he said, a lot of dudes, they don't have the education to know how to talk to each other. He said they don't know how to express themselves, and he said because they don't know how to express themselves, it turns into what happens, and it becomes a cycle, right? Because it's like, you took mine, so now I got to take yours, and it's that simple. Like, it's not like, it's not that simple, but I'm saying that something so minuscule can become so tragic.
Yes.
And it becomes a cycle. So talk about just that, you know, like, how do we step in and make sure that we can teach kids to communicate so they don't feel like their conflict resolution becomes that. And then how do we heal, right? And get out of that hurt people don't hurt other people, right? Because it's so detrimental.
I would
Sorry,
say,
and just to cut you off real quick, and I say that to say because there's a lot of shooting that happens around my neighborhood, and I'm always like, why, why, and yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I agree. I agree that it is a cycle that started with, the fact that we don't communicate well, and that we don't have models sometimes for great communication. I'm not going to say that across the board because there are a lot of, homes and environments where there is good communication, but there are some that, could use some true skills when it comes to conflict resolution. But when do we start that? We start that early. We don't wait until later in life. Why is that? It's kind of how I feel, and that's a whole nother topic, how I feel about economic education and financial literacy as well. Why are we waiting till later or after the problems to teach these skills that are going to be needed for life? So why not in kindergarten, in fourth grade, in fifth grade, not just solving problems for our students? Those students are still going to school. Yeah, later on they might have a gun, or they may either be in a gang or may not, but at some point they were in someone's school, okay? So why not hit them early, okay, with those skills that they would need? Why are we solving problems for them instead of teaching them how to communicate how they feel and making it an environment where it's okay, all right, to express yourself? That starts early in the school system. What happens though is we instead will either punish or, solve the problem for the student, give them some type of punishment, and then move on. That's not going to teach them the strategy of talking or any kind of resolution. But also we have to mimic it. I mean, they're going to mimic it, so we have to make sure to be models of that. What does that behavior actually look like? Okay, why is it? It is easier for me. I'm thinking as a human being right now, if it would be easier to grab that gun, okay, let the gun do the talking for me, especially if I'm operating out of fear or ignorance because I don't know what's going on. Had you told me ahead of time and allowed me to communicate and given me these skill sets throughout school, then I would be prepared for these type of confrontations. I see the cycle over and over and over again. If you have taken mine, then yes, why wouldn't I take yours? And if that's what I've always seen, that's generation after generation. My grandfather didn't like your grandfather. My dad didn't like your dad. And my uncle doesn't like your uncle. My cousin doesn't like your cousin. Well, we have to start somewhere. And what we can't control what happens outside in the home or in the streets, but in school systems, we can control giving our kids, equipping them with communication skills, equipping them with how to have a conversation, how to avoid negative situations. And that's happening on the playground. That's happening early. So I say it starts early.
Man, absolutely. I got my sister, Miss Blue, Fenyx Blue. She is an author. She is a teacher, school leader. She is an educator. She's dropping the gems. What do you want people to get from this podcast episode?
I want people, whoever's listening, I want them to know how important our students are, and that all they want, you don't have to be any other version. When you say teach simple, simply be yourself, teacher, right? Just be yourself. That will be enough to reach these kids. And so it's as simple as that. And I feel the same way as an author. I don't have to be any version of anyone else. I don't have to be Baldwin or Angelou or Hughes. I can be Fenyx Blue, and that's simply enough. So.
And that's the simplicity, y'all. I got my sister Fenyx Blue coming out of Chi-Town. She got 4 books. She is killing it with the teacher leadership. Teacher of the year. She's about to have an amazing weekend. I love it. Where can they find you? What's some cool things you got coming up?
Absolutely. They can find me at Fenyx, FENYX Blue Ink on all platforms. What I have coming up is I am actually working with a teacher author who is going to put out a book on financial literacy. So I have moved into also helping others to write their books. So I'm really excited about that. And I'm working on another book myself as well called Royalty.
Wow. And what is royalty about?
It is about a young man who is going to be coming to Chicago, and he's going to be having some very interesting situations that he's dealing with. But hopefully at the end, he'll realize that he is royalty.
Good. I love it. I love it. And where can they find your books? On everywhere, right?
Yes, I'm on Amazon, my website. If you type in Fenyx Blue Ink and you're going to get to me. So you can find Battle of the Bullies, you can find Who Failed Johnny, Worth the Wait, the Blue Ink Movement on Amazon, Fenyx Blue Ink.
I love it. I love it. It's a T Simple podcast. I got an amazing person. I hope you all love this episode. She came in and just blessed us with so much stuff. Thank you so much, Ms. Blue. You have an amazing day. Peace out, y'all.
Bye-bye. Thank you.